Hi everyone and welcome to our geography lesson today. My name is Mr. Antel and we're going to continue our learning of the country of Brazil in today's lesson. Now previously we've looked at lots of different things about the country of Brazil. We've looked at different cities, we've looked at what it's like to live in those cities, we've looked at different physical features and human features, and today we're going to be thinking about people of Brazil and how the populations of the country are moving. And some people are migrating to different places. So let's get started. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so our learning question today is how are populations within Brazil moving? So how are populations within Brazil moving? And in this lesson, first of all, we're going to recap those 7 continents, which you're getting really good at now. And we're going to be thinking about the population of Brazil, so how many people live there. And we're going to look at some urban and rural landscapes. Now, if you haven't heard of the words urban or rural before, that's okay. We're going to go through those meanings later. And we're going to think about the process called urbanisation. And again, we're going to go through that one later. So don't worry if you haven't heard that word before. And finally, our final question is that we're going to think about why some people in Brazil are migrating to live in different urban areas. So before we begin our lesson today, you're going to need the usual bits. So you're going to need some paper or your workbook. You're going to need a pencil or a pen. And you're going to need, as always, your geography brain. So if you're missing any of those things, pause the video and go and grab them now. Great, so we are ready to begin. So my first challenge for you guys today is to see if you can remember all 7 continents of the world. And I'm going to show you the shape of those continents. So here they are. Can you write down which continent is which? I've jumbled up the order to make it a little bit tricky for you. Have a go, pause the video now and say or write down the name of each of these continents. Off you go. Okay, let's have a look at the answers. So, starting off with A is Europe. Well done if you got that one. B, Africa. C, Asia. D, Australia, or Australasia and Oceania, one of the 3. E, Antarctica, the one that looks a little bit different. F, North America. And the last one, G, is South America. Well done, South America. And that's the one that has what country? Brazil. Okay, well done if you got those. If you want to pause the video now to write down any that you missed, you can do. Okay, so now we're going to zoom in on the continent of South America, where Brazil is located. So Brazil is one of the countries that we know in South America. Let's recap those other ones. Can you think of them? So going from the south, on the left-hand side, we've got Chile, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, French Guiana. Remember, that's a territory of France, not a country in itself. Brazil, our country that we're looking into. Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina. So let's take a closer look at Brazil. And today, we're going to be looking at the population of Brazil and how it is changing. So, things we know about the population of Brazil. The current population of Brazil is over 212 million people. That's a lot of people that live in Brazil. And the population has been increasing, that means getting bigger, for many years. So there's more people living in Brazil now than there were in previous years. And within the country of Brazil, many people are migrating to live in different parts of the country. Now, the word migrating means when you move from one area to live in another area. So lots of people are migrating from one place in Brazil to another place. And we can look at areas within Brazil as urban areas or rural areas. Now, these words, you might know them or they might be new to you. So let's have a look at what they mean. An urban area is when we have land used for human settlements and industry. So things like bigger towns and cities are all urban areas. So they're larger human settlements. Whereas rural areas are bits of land in the countryside that are used for farming or for natural areas for people to visit. And these would be things like farms or nature reserves. Okay, so urban areas, larger human settlements like towns and cities. Rural areas, places within the countryside like farms or nature reserves. So I'd like you now to say or to write down these definitions. So see if you can fill in the blanks of my sentences. So what's the difference between an urban and a rural area? So look at the sentence starters here. An urban area is, for example, and then a rural area is, for example. So pause the video now and copy these sentences down and fill in the blanks. Good luck. Well done, everybody. So we should have said or written down that an urban area is land used for human settlement. For example, towns and cities. A rural area is places in the countryside that are used for farming or natural areas like farms or nature reserves. If you've got those correct, then you can give yourself a big pat on your back. So let's have a look at how the population in urban and rural areas are changing in Brazil. So we're going to focus on one region called the Caatinga, which is in the northeast of Brazil. It's a rural region, that means it's in the countryside, and it's in the northwest of Brazil. It's not northwest, that's northeast. I do apologize, that's the northeast of Brazil. And around 26 million people live in this region. Now, because of the hot and dry weather in this region, and because of the soil that's there, it's difficult to farm animals or to grow crops there. So because it doesn't rain that much, and the ground is very dry and the soil is pretty thin, it's difficult to have any animals living there because there's not enough grass for them to eat. And it's difficult to grow crops because the plants always need water to grow. So that's an example of a rural area in Brazil. Now let's zoom in and let's move over to an urban area. So lots of urban areas in Brazil are located further south in the country. And one example is Brasilia, which is the capital city. And we've looked at that in a previous lesson. Brasilia is a large city with a population of 2.48 million. So we've got rural areas like the Caatinga, and we've got urban areas like the capital city of Brasilia. Now we're going to think about a process called urbanisation. Urbanisation. That looks a bit of a mouthful, so let's just practice saying that. My turn, your turn. Urbanisation. One more time. Urbanisation. Well done. Now let's try and find out what it means. So, urbanisation is when more of the population moves to live in urban areas like towns or cities, rather than rural areas like the Katinga. Urbanisation means that cities need to get bigger so that they can provide housing and jobs for the people moving there. So urbanisation is when people move from rural areas to urban areas, okay? So from the countryside to the towns, and this means that the cities need to get bigger so they can provide housing for the people and provide jobs for people to do. I'm going to see how much of that you can remember. So can you tell me, what is urbanisation? And again, I want you to fill in the gaps in the sentences. So urbanisation means when more people move from to, and this means that cities need to become. Okay, so pause the video now, copy those sentences and see if you can fill in the gaps. Good luck. Okay, so did you manage to remember that definition? So urbanisation means when more people move from rural areas, from the countryside, to urban areas, to towns and cities. And this means that cities need to become bigger so that there are enough jobs and enough houses for people to live. If you remember that and you got it right, you are incredible. Well done. That was tricky stuff. So urbanisation is happening a lot in Brazil at the moment. Many people are moving to live in urban areas like the cities in the south of the country. We're going to look at some of the reasons why people might want to move from the rural areas to the urban areas. So why are people migrating to live in urban areas? Migration is one of those keywords I discussed right at the start of the lesson, and it means when people move from one place to another. So when they go living in one area to another area, there are different reasons why people might choose to move to live in another area. So some of those are called push factors. And these are reasons why a person might want to move away from somewhere else. Whereas pull factors are reasons why a person wants to move to a particular area. So push factors are pushing away from certain areas, and pull factors are drawing people to live in different areas. So let's have a look at some of those push factors. So some push factors are causing migration might be these. Now these are just some reasons why people might choose to move from rural areas. This doesn't mean that everybody thinks this way. So in rural areas like the Katinga, can you say that word again? Katinga, in the northeast of Brazil, there's less education and training than in some of the other areas. And the main job there that people do is farming. So there aren't a lot of different jobs that people could do, but the main job is farming. Now the weather in this rural area is incredibly hot and dry, and that makes it difficult for lots of crops to grow. So it's difficult to be a farmer in the Katinga area because the weather is so hot and dry, it's difficult to keep animals or to grow crops there. Now some villages in this area might not have access to things like electricity and technology that we might be used to here in the UK. So those are some reasons why some people might want to move away from rural areas like the Katinga region. Now, lots of people are choosing to move to urban areas like Brasilia, the capital city. So these are some of the reasons why some people might want to move to the city. Not everybody does want to move to the city, but Brasilia is the capital city. It's a wealthy city. That means there's lots of money there, and there are lots of different opportunities. So there are lots of different schools, colleges and universities within the capital city, and there are a range of jobs available in the city which often pay higher wages than those in the Katinga region in the north of Brazil. Now, from what we learned last week about the city of Rio de Janeiro, we know that moving to a city doesn't always mean your life will get better. So we saw that lots of different people had very different experiences within the city. And sometimes cities can become overcrowded when too many people live there and might not have housing available. But these are some of the reasons why people might be drawn to live in the city or an urban area rather than a rural area. So things like having opportunities for more education, different kinds of jobs, and earning more money than they might do in the north. These are all reasons why people might move. So have a think about those factors that we talked about. Why are so many people in Brazil choosing to move from rural areas to urban areas? Let's have a look at these sentences. Again, you're going to copy those down and you're going to fill in the gaps for me, please. Some people in Brazil choose to move from rural areas like, what's the name of that place we keep speaking about? To urban areas like, can you remember the name of that capital city? One push factor, that's the reason why people want to move away from the rural north is, and one pull factor, something drawing people to the city is. See if you can pause the video to fill in those sentences by writing or saying them. If you want to rewind the video to get some of that information, again to put in your answer, you can do that now. Good luck. Okay, great work, everybody. Well done for your hard work today. There was lots of new information that we've learned in that lesson, and that's the end of our lesson today, but that was a brilliant effort. So congratulations on your results of your geography lesson today. If you've enjoyed the lesson and you're really proud of what you've done, please would you send a picture of all your fantastic work to your teachers who cannot wait to see it. I hope you've enjoyed your lesson today, and we're going to continue our learning more about the fascinating country of Brazil next time. See you then. Bye.